Hello and welcome back to Bicyclelegs Talks Music and another edition of In Defense of. And can you please welcome to the channel a new guest, Mr. Cody Brockway. Cody, pleasure to have you on the channel.
Pleasure to be here, my friend.
And we're going to be talking some Gentle Giant today. In particular, we're going to be talking about an album that I think gets unfairly maligned, and that is The Missing Piece.
Yeah.
Yes, I've got the lovely Steven Wilson remix there as well.
Oh yeah.
But
The vinyl, my vinyl is too.
Oh, okay. Yeah, mine's an original US pressing. You can see at the top there, it's got the Capital logo.
Capital, yeah. I have an original of it too, but this, just the Steven Wilson mixes, you can't really beat them, right?
Yeah.
They're pretty great sounding.
So this album was released on 26th of August 1977. It was considered a big shift for the band in towards a more commercial sound.
Mhm.
A lot of fans didn't react very well to this album, and to this day, this album is considered by a lot of the Gentle Giant fans to be, well, a bit of a turkey. And we're here to kind of debunk that because I think this is a much better album than this album gets credit for. What do you think, Cody?
Yeah, and I've been listening to this a lot in the last month as for preparation for this, and just because I like the album a lot too. And if Steven Wilson's remixing it, it's got to be at least somewhat good, right? But no, I find that it's that while it's a very obvious step towards where they're going, it still has the real quirkiness that they're known for.
Yeah,
And you can hear that all throughout this album, even with the more, dare I say, accessible points of it. Um,
yeah.
it's about as accessible as Gentle Giant would get. But
So, how
if
did you first get into Gentle Giant, Cody?
my dad, my dad had
Yep.
he had their albums, Power and the Glory, Octopus, and Three Friends on CD when I was growing up. My dad got me into Yes, Frank Zappa, Led Zeppelin, Gentle Giant, all this classic and progressive rock stuff. And and so he used to play me stuff like the Three Friends albums and things like that. And so that's how I got into Gentle Giant, was through him. Love you, Dad.
Yeah. You're making me feel a bit old here, Cody. But yeah, I got into Gentle Giant. I'm wearing a Spock's Beard shirt today, with my The Light shirt, and I actually got into Gentle Giant through Spock's Beard because I discovered Spock's Beard around about year 2000, something like that,
Mm.
and I bought the Making of Five DVD, and Five is my favorite
Yeah,
Spock's Beard album,
it's brilliant.
and during the making of documentary. Neil Morse kept referring to what would become Thoughts Part 2 as his Gentle Giant song. And
Oh
I
yeah.
love Thoughts Part 2. I absolutely adore that song. So it made me, I was like, I've never heard of this Gentle Giant band. I must check them out. So I think I bought the CD of Octopus. And from there, it was just love at first listen. And I became a massive Gentle Giant fan, had to go out and buy all the albums and so on and so on. So, that's my sort of journey into the Gentle Giant catalog.
Yeah,
So,
they're wild. And that's awesome that Spock's Beard got you into it, because you can totally hear Gentle Giant, and not just Spock's Beard, but all of the Neil Morse stuff. Like even his new record, you can hear Gentle
mm,
Giant influences and the transatlantic stuff. Can you believe that guy, just as a side note, he put out the first transatlantic album and V in the same year.
yeah, both wonderful, wonderful records too. So, what we're going to do is we're going to go track by track through the missing piece. And I think a lot of people will find that the quibbles that they have with this album are mostly on side one. I think you'd agree with me there, Cody.
Yeah, yes,
But
yes.
I think even some of the tracks on side one are pretty darn good. And the album starts off with 2 weeks in Spain, which is definitely a departure for them musically. So what are your thoughts on 2 weeks in Spain?
Well, at this point, it's something that had kind of started with the interview record that came out just before this. They had kind of leaned into like this more reggae side in certain tracks. I think they had a song on that record called "Give It Back" that was totally reggae. And this song, while not being out and out, Bob Marley, is very sort of rock and roll reggae-ish. 2 weeks in Spain, da 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 da. It's kind of boppy, like you can bop around and dance to it a little bit, which is odd for a Gentle Giant song, but it's fun. It has that real element of fun, and it's got a sense of humor about it.
Yeah, absolutely. I really like this song.
Me
I
too.
think it definitely is a more accessible song for them. It's definitely boppy, it's as you said, but I think it still has that Gentle Giant sound to it. The
Yeah,
keyboards still, Kerry Minier's keyboards still have that very Gentle Gianty sort of sound to it. That doodle-dee, riff in the verses and that sort
yeah.
of thing. Still highly Gentle Giant for me. I think one of the things that people, I think don't get into this album as much as the earlier Gentle Giant is they are definitely using the more conventional instruments too. You don't get, a lot of violin on this album or, the marimbas or the xylophones or, all that sort of thing. It's very much the straight sort of, guitar, bass, keyboard, drums, but it still has that Gentle Giant flavor to it. I think 2 Weeks in Spain is one of their best opening tracks. I absolutely love it. I think it's a bop to use a modern parlance. I think it's a great track.
I don't disagree. That's a
Then
good
we
song. It's
get
fun.
yeah. So then we get I'm Turning Around, which is more of a ballad. It's again not a sort of thing that Gentle Giant have really done much on their previous albums. So I'd be interested to see what you think of this one.
I have genuine appreciation for this entire record. Some songs probably more than others, but I do like this song. Uh, like you said, it definitely is very much a departure from what they were doing. I mean, you got used to their albums, like where every song was it's just its own bucket of absolute chaos and insanity. And as to where this, you can kind of hear like, okay, like if they had continued on in the fashion of songs like I'm Turning Around, that could have been a big hit in the 80s, you know what I mean? If they had have
Mm.
continued on and obviously the singer Derek Shulman would go and work for all these record companies, so on and so forth. But it for this band at this time, it was really a sort of different type of piece. But it's just that sort of change, and it doesn't mean it's not a good song just because it's different for what they do.
Mm. Absolutely. I think Gentle Giant throughout their whole career were ahead of their time.
Yeah.
I think, when they were doing the weird, strange experimental stuff, that was way ahead of its time. But even an album like this is ahead of its time in as much as, a lot of the, Genesis, Yes, that sort of band would change their sound and go in a more commercial way. Gentle
Mhm.
Giant are doing that like 3 years before anybody else is. They're all doing it at the beginning of the 80s, and Gentle Giant are doing it way back in 1977. They could see the writing on the wall even then. But
Mhm.
I think the reason that maybe their transition into a more commercial sound didn't work isn't because the music wasn't good. It may be because they went a little early, and I think it also may be because they never were a big band the way Yes and Genesis were. Yes and Genesis were touring stadiums in the US and that sort of thing, whereas Gentle Giant was still doing sort of clubs and that sort of venue.
Yeah.
So it may be a case of they weren't big enough to make the switch. But I'm Turning Around is a beautiful ballad. It really is. Derek
Yes.
sings it so tenderly. There's beautiful keyboards on it and lovely little sort of synth solo in the middle, which I really, really like. I think it's a great song. It was released as a single. It unfortunately didn't do anything, but yeah, I know a lot of Gentle Giant fans don't like this song, but I really, really do. So,
Yeah, I like the song too. And it's just different for them, right? But some people who only like the absolute insanity, and rightfully so. I mean, the albums that came before this are some of the best albums in this genre, right? But yeah, I mean, every band has that moment typically where they'll do something different, right? And that's what Gentle Giant was built off of, was those moments of being different. So we can't really fault them for having a ballad finally on a song because they're always been different. You know what I mean?
hmm.
Hmm.
Then we get, I think, one of the most uh, hated on songs on this album, which is Bet You Thought We Couldn't Do It.
Well,
Um, this is definitely a reaction to, the punk movement and that sort of thing.
yeah.
Um, what are your thoughts on this one?
It's definitely yeah, it's definitely like what you said. It's very rock and rollsy. Bet you thought we couldn't do it. Dun, 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 dun. It's definitely like their sort of response. And I think the name actually sort of speaks for itself in that regard, is that, well, I bet you thought we couldn't do this. So like what we're doing
Hmm.
here, this sort of up-tempo, punky groove thing. But the people who would be totally into progressive rock probably would not appreciate that, because it's like, well, I'm not a big punk fan myself. I mean, obviously there's some stuff I like, but I like the song because it's even for the album that it's on, it's a different sort of approach to the writing. And yeah, it's just, this is just another one of these fun pieces, right? It's not a long song, anything like that, but it's just another one of those. It's like a bit of a laugh, right?
Hmm. Yeah, no, fair enough. I do like quite a bit of punk music, and I find it interesting with this one that it's got that energy, but it still can't help but be Gentle Gianty. You
Yeah.
know, there's again in the middle section, there's this little keyboard solo, and you know, and that the riff that goes through this song, that danny and danny and danny, way
Hmm.
too complex for most punk music. Um,
Yeah. And there's nothing
but
wrong with punk music. I like some punk too. I mean, I
yeah,
wouldn't what you call like a punk freak, but there's certain bands that I love, you know.
yeah, and but I like the fact that they're kind of going for, I'm glad they didn't do a whole album of this, let's put it that way.
Yeah.
Um, but as a one-off during the album, yeah, I think it's fun, it's lighthearted, and it's interesting to see their take on that sort. And again, we're only talking 1977, punk is only just really breaking at this stage. So again, they're really on the cutting edge. You know,
Hmm.
Again, you take Genesis, probably the one track that they did that was kind of punky is Who Done It? And that's like 1981 on Abacab.
Yeah.
So, um, yeah. So again, I think Gentle Giant, right on the cutting edge, ahead of the game, ahead of their time, seeing what was coming, seeing the writing on the wall, and trying to do something about it. So,
Yeah, yeah. And while we mentioned Genesis, I love them. They're my favorite band. I met the guitar player a few times. He drew on this album.
oh, lovely.
He's an awesome guy, and yeah, love Genesis and all these bands of this time, right? Just amazing music.
Yeah, absolutely. So then we get Who Do You Think We Are? And I'll be interested to see what you think of this track because I've got to admit this is probably not one of the strongest tracks on the album for me.
No, it's not really one of the standout one of the standout pieces. Of course, there is a couple of massive standouts on side two, but it's no, it's not really one of the most memorable pieces, I should say, of the album.
Yeah, it's kind of bit honky tonk and
Hmm.
it's I
Yeah.
don't know. There's something about it. It's the one song on here that I feel is a bit of a misstep. But
Hmm.
I mean they were trying new things, as you know, especially here on side one. They're trying new things. Not everything worked. Who do you think we are? I don't think the lyric is particularly great. I think musically it doesn't suit them. They do it well enough. That sort of honky tonk kind of, piano and that sort
Hmm.
of thing.
Sort of roadhousey,
I just
right?
Yeah, exactly. But it to me it doesn't really suit them. So,
That's one of the things that I have to kind of give them credit for, is the fact that th this really is an album where they're just going all out, like, and they're doing this. They're really stepping out of their comfort zone here,
mm,
more so probably than ever before because they found a comfort in the chaos, right? And while that was always very different, they're really stepping out here and just doing all this other different stuff that you've never heard on a Gentle Giant before, on a Gentle
yeah.
Giant record before. Same with the next song, Mountain Time.
Yeah, Mountain Time's a lot more up tempo than Who Do You Think We Are? There is a live concert that came out like they did for the BBC. It's like an hour-long show. It's well worth seeking out if you've never seen it before. And they do Mountain Time during the that show. They also do Bet You Thought We Couldn't Do It in 2 weeks in Spain. But and then they do a bunch of their older stuff as well. So, but Mountain Time works really well as a live track, I think.
Mm.
It's a real stomper of a song. Um,
I'm not really that familiar with the live versions of it. I could just go off of what I know from here.
yeah,
But it's a good tune and it closes off side one very nicely.
yeah, absolutely. And then we get side two, and I think that a lot of people will tell, the Gentle Giant fans will say side two is where it's at for
Yeah.
this record. If they say that anything is where it's at for this record at all, that is. I mean, a lot of people just completely dismiss this record, which is, so unfair. And I think that's why we're doing this show is to say this is an album not to be dismissed.
It's
And it
it's
starts off with As Old as You're Young. And I think that's a great track. What do you think?
I love it. It's well, just I love these Carey Minier tracks so much, right? I mean, every album he has at least one song where he gets to sort of spread his wings and do what he does. And this is not really, like we kind of mentioned about how this album sort of leans to the more accessible side of the band. And while he might be trying for that with this song, it's still very much Gentle Giant in the sense that it really has the odd Gentle Giantisms in it. And that's one of the things I love about it. And I love his voice and his keyboard playing is awesome. But this one, he does sort of co-leads with Derek and him, and it really works well. This song, As Old as You're Young, should actually fit in most people's favorite list of Gentle Giant songs. It's one of those, right? This
Yeah,
shows that they're still doing what they used to do, and the same with the next song
yeah.
when we get.
No, As Old as You're Young. I mean, what a great track. It's up tempo. It's still fairly accessible, I think, but it's got these lovely sort of gentle gianty keyboard riffs in it that
Exactly.
um and yeah, it's always nice to hear Kerry take a lead vocal because he only takes the one on this album and he wouldn't take one at all actually on Giant for a Day.
Mm.
But yeah, I mean, it's always lovely to hear Carrie take a lead vocal, and then Derek comes in on the last verse and takes it up. They change key and get up really high, and he really takes it off, and I love that sort of last bit of it as well. And it's a song that does all those Gentle Giant things in about 4 minutes.
Yeah.
I mean, Gentle Giant were never a band to do really, really long songs. There's no Gentle Giant side-long epics or anything like that. I think the longest Gentle Giant song on a studio album is about 10 minutes long.
It's
So,
man, it's 9 minutes 52, I think.
well, there you go. Um, so yeah, I mean, and then yeah, I mean, everybody, I think most Gentle Giant fans will tell you. the masterwork on this album is Memories of Old Days. So, what are your
It's
thoughts on that one?
This piece really reminds me of sort of Steve Hackett style music due to its well, due to the acoustic and sort of I guess it's a 12 string. But just that sort of beautiful acoustic that takes you throughout the entire song. I mean, the vocals don't come in. I think this is one of their longer songs at just over 7 minutes, and the vocals don't come in till about 3 minutes, I think. But you're so taken with the beauty of the acoustic guitars in this song. It is one of their most beautiful songs. Um, and this really is one of the prog fans' delight on this record is Memories of Old Days. My girlfriend is Tara O'Reilly from Spin in Prague here on YouTube, and she is a big fan of that song as well. And we were listening to this earlier today, and we're just going, "Damn, this is really good." Like it was so good when it ended, we had to restart the song over because it's just one of those songs, right? It's just a
Yeah.
great tune, and just the whole feel and the sort of the reminiscent sort of vibe of the song mixed with the acoustic guitars and the beautiful melodies sung by Derek Schulman. It's a great song.
Yeah, absolutely. You got those. I think it's twin 12 strings at the beginning there. You've got Gary Green and Ray Schulman both playing 12 string.
Yeah.
And it's just absolutely gorgeous with the harmonics that they're using and all this sort of thing. And yeah, it really builds and builds they take their time getting to the actual song, but you don't mind because the atmospheres they're creating are just so gorgeous.
Life's about the
Um,
journey, not the destination.
Absolutely. And Kerry's playing some keyboard, like some synthesizer on that intro that almost takes you back to those sort of Gentle Giant songs that have recorder in them. Because it's kind of got that recordery kind of sound to the synth that, that do 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 do. It's got
Yeah.
that melody too, has got that kind of medieval feel that I think a lot of Gentle Giant had, which I always really, really love too. And then, my goodness, how good is Derek Schulman's vocal on this song? He
It's I'd say it's
slays
one of
it.
the the song is kind of ballady in the sense that they really slow it down, and his melodies is just absolutely beautiful. His melodic choices in this are just gorgeous.
Yeah. It's a cracking track. If I had to make a top 10 or top 12 Gentle Giant songs, I think this song would be definitely in contention for getting on there. Okay, so the next song is Winning, and as I was saying, Cody, I think this is the one you were thinking of when we were talking about Mountain Time that has all
Yeah.
that bang crash at the beginning. And you know what? I don't know if this is a complete coincidence or not, but I have a feeling like John Weathers isn't on Memories of Old Days at all. There's no drums, no percussion on Memories of Old Days. So I feel like at the beginning of this song, he's kind of making up for that, like just doing all this.
I'm still here.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, no, I got that I got the intros confused for whatever reason.
yeah,
But
no,
yeah,
that's fair enough.
right. You're right. You're right. It is winning that has all those cool sound effects. And I love when they do that because they did that at the beginning of In a Glass House back in
Mm,
1973, I think it was. And it's literally like the sound is like rocks being thrown through a window. Like that's what it feels like, right? When you listen to it like
mm.
yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. This song wouldn't have sounded out of place on Interview or even Freehand, I think.
Well, yeah,
Side
because
two of Freehand, I reckon this song would have fit right in.
yeah, I mean, and like interview, like you said, because it kind of has that, it has that almost reggae-ish sort of feel to it again, right?
Mm,
And that sort of vibe would have worked well with other songs like "Give It Back" from the album previous. So yeah, they were winning all right.
yeah, absolutely. I think it's a great song. It's got that sort of tumbling feel that a lot of Gentle Giant songs have. Um, I've always admired with Gentle Giant, not just on this album, but on a lot of their other albums, and I think Freehand is the most obvious example of it, how they can sound complex without sounding cluttered.
Hmm.
You know,
Hmm.
there can be a lot going on in the song, but it's not getting in the way of itself. And you can still hear every little part and every little detail. Their arrangement skills, I feel like, are second to none.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, they're kind of in a class of their own, you know. I mean, like there's not
Hmm.
really anyone else that sounds like them. I mean, Gentle Giant is kind of like a genre in and of itself. Is their whole
Yeah,
sound.
absolutely. Absolutely. In the 70s, there were no other prog bands that sounded like Gentle Giant, at least none that I'm aware of. You know,
And like their influence is massive. Like you're wearing the Spock's beard shirt, like we were talking about before we came
yeah,
on. Um, in particular, the songs, both Thoughts Part One and Thoughts Part Two, are very Gentle Giant leaning, and that's something that Neil Morris has kind of carried with him, even through his conversion to Christianity and all the Neil Morris band records and the transatlantic stuff, and right up to the new album. You know, he like there's hints of Gentle Giant, and you can hear it in so much of his discography, without it sounding derivative. It's very complimentary. You know what I mean? Because he's
yeah,
a
absolutely. And then the album closes out with For Nobody, and I don't know about you, but I love this song.
it's another one of those rock and rollsy, almost punky sort of thing, right? I mean, as punk as Gentle Giant would go, you kind of get that on Bet You Thought We Couldn't Do It, and the same sort of feel and vibe on For Nobody. Yeah, it's a great way to end the record. Like, it's a good one.
I feel like this has that punk feel, as you say, but it's definitely a Gentle Giant song.
Oh
Whereas
yeah,
Bet You Thought We Couldn't Do It is not so much in their regular style. For Nobody absolutely is, but it just they take the punk energy and add it to their Gentle Giantness, if that makes any sense. And
absolutely.
it ends up with just an absolutely breathtakingly good album closer, you know. And again, you hear I have an older CD version of this album in my collection as well. And the bonus track on that is a live version of For Nobody. And
Oh
even though it's kind of bootleg quality sounding, you can hear the energy of their playing live, and it's just something to behold. I
yeah,
would love to have seen them do that song live. It would have been absolutely wonderful. And you get those wonderful, vocal interplays that have been, not so much on this album, but those vocal interplays that were the influence on Spock's Beard and that Thoughts Part Two and things like that, with the
yeah,
interweaving sort of contrapuntal vocals. This is
acapella
the
bit.
first, yeah, this is the first time we really get a bit of that on this album, and it's
Yeah,
it's refreshing to hear that.
because that's
So
their thing, right?
absolutely. There weren't a lot of bands, prog or otherwise, that had four or five, you know, world-class singers in the band that could do that.
Hmm.
Um, if you've never seen it, you want to see their singing talents. Again, that BBC concert from 1978, they do a live version of On Reflection from the Freehand album.
Classic.
And my goodness, their vocal interplay, it's all five of them singing. And it's just, oh my goodness,
Wow, yeah. Now that album,
breathtaking stuff.
we could do one on that album too.
Yeah.
That's a
But
great record.
so overall, your thoughts on this album, like where it comes in the sort of Gentle Giant catalog for you and that sort of thing?
Um, I'd put this maybe not on the top of the pile, but
Hmm.
it is one that I reach for pretty often because of how different it is. And stylistically, each song is kind of a departure from the last track. And that's one of the things for better or for worse, that's one of the things that I appreciate about this is how different it is, even in a in a band like this, even in their catalog, how different this record is, because it's not as straightforward as Giant for a Day and Civilian. And I love those records, by the way. I maybe not as much Giant for a Day, but I do like Civilian a lot. And but it's those are more straightforward in the sense that this one is still this is kind of like a crossover record, and this is kind of like the Duke of the catalog. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's kind of like the Duke and Abacab, where those are like the transitional periods sort of records, and that's what they were doing here. I feel like they were really reaching for stuff that they had never done before sonically, and so they got that honky tonk sort of Roadhouse vibes in some of the songs. They got the rock and rollsy sort of punk vibes. They have the acoustic, and they have the acoustic, and then of course the sort of cemented Gentle Giant vibe songs on here, and it's an adventurous listen, and you put it on, and you're taken to a whole bunch of different places in the 40 minutes that the album runs, right?
Mm.
So, yeah, but still, I mean, considering what came before it, it'd be hard to put this one on the top. So I'd put this
Yeah.
one just about maybe the halfway point in their catalog because it is very good.
Yeah. Oh, look, I agree. When I did my Gentle Giant ranking, this was in the bottom half, but I feel like it's an album that needs to be given more of a chance by Gentle Giant fans and by music fans more generally.
Mhm.
Because, as you say, there's a lot of variety on this album. It's definitely showing where they were going, but still has that Gentle Giant flavor to a lot of it. There's probably only one song on this album that I really don't particularly care for, and that's Who Do You Think We Are? The rest of it, I think, is really, really good.
Yeah.
Side one, the more commercial side of it. Side two is definitely more in the traditional Gentle Giant sort of sound, but still with that extra energy. And yeah, this is an album that I think that really, really needs to be reevaluated by Gentle Giant fans and by music fans more generally, because I think it's a much better album than people give it credit for.
Yeah, and it's one of those where this one is not I mean, at least where I am in Canada. I own a record store out here, Second Chance Records, 20 Argyle Street, North Caledonia, Ontario, Canada. Sorry, just to put that out there.
Yeah,
But
no,
that
no, no, fair enough.
where I'm going with, like, you'll see why I mentioned that is because if you want to get a copy of this record and you don't have it, at least around here, it's actually pretty easy to come by an original of this. You could get an
Mm,
original of this for like $15 or
yeah.
maybe even less, right? And so it doesn't run you a lot of money because, well, they were on Capitol at that point, right? So the Capitol records are more mass produced than something that was on a smaller label in a sense. Um, but yeah, we have all the Gentle Giant records in my store, and we have a couple copies of this one too. So it's not like it's hard to come by. So like if your collection is void of this one, you could pick it up for a pretty good price.
Yeah, absolutely, and well worth doing. Not like those, if you want the original pressings of some of those early albums on the Vertigo Swirl label, those can cost you a pretty, pretty penny, can't they?
You know what? I managed to luck out in my collection, and I've got all of them, I think, except for the first one.
Yeah,
I've got all of them on the original UK labels, the Vertigo
yeah,
labels and everything. It's pretty sweet.
yeah.
This is the
Sorry,
Stephen
what?
Wilson mix, and the sound on the Stephen Wilson mix is really great. Especially if you're surround sound nut, it's worth it to pick up the Digipack CD and DVD edition.
Yeah, absolutely agree. The Stephen Wilson surround sound mixes are the best in the business, and
Yeah,
you definitely hear little extra details and stuff that you wouldn't hear otherwise by listening to the surround sound mix.
totally.
So there you have it, everyone. That's our thoughts on Gentle Giant's The Missing Piece. Cody, thank you so much for doing the show with me. I really, really appreciate it. Can you please let my listeners know where they can find you on the internet? Because I know you do like a radio show or two. You also have a YouTube channel. So where can people find you?
Yeah, so my YouTube channel is not the name that I have. It used to be this, that what's in the corner, but I hadn't used Zoom in a while. It's Brockway's Vinyl Bites. Bites as in Bytes. So it's like digital. but like vinyl at the same time. It's that sort of mix of digital and analog stuff. So Brockway's Vinyl Bites here on YouTube. I also do two radio shows. I do one radio show every Thursday afternoon at 12 p.m. Eastern on Prog Radio. You can get the app for that on your phone, or you could just go into your web browser, go www.progradio.com. That's at noon on the Eastern time zones here. Of course, if you're on the Pacific, that's 9 a.m., I think. And then I do another show every Thursday night on Deep Nuggets Radio. You just go www.deepnuggets.com. That's every Thursday night at 8 p.m. Eastern. And I do a 3 hour show. I'll play everything from progressive rock to heavy metal to classic rock to blues to jazz to it's all there. It's all there. And so yeah, I want to say thank you, Daniel, for having me on. It's really been a pleasure getting to chat with you about this amazing band.
Well, thanks for coming on. And for all my viewers, if you want links to all those various projects of Cody's, I will leave links in the description so that you can find all those different projects. Please do like, share, and subscribe. It really does help the channel out. If you're new to the channel, please go and have a look at some of my other videos. I have everything playlisted, so if you want to see some of my other In Defense Of shows, I have a playlist for those. If you want to see some of my Bicycle Legs Discovers Rush series, I have a playlist for those. And if you want to see my appearances on other people's channels, I also have a playlist for those. If you want to follow me on social media, I'm at Bicycle Legs on Instagram, Twitter, and a bunch of other places. I also have a dedicated Bicycle Legs Facebook page. Links are all in the doobly-doo. Please do give those all a follow and join in the conversation. I'd really love to have you there. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.